India, a country known today for its beauty, architecture, and vibrant expressions of religion. But what is less recognized for is the country's fight for freedom and independence from Britain. India's struggle against the British all starts with the Rebellion of 1857. This rebellion shows a fight against a corrupt government, but also a fight for respect of religion, race, and culture. In 1857, India was under the rule of the British government. The East India Company was assigned to oversee trade in India, but eventually became seen as a form of government rule in the country. The company also had their own private army, largely made up of sepoys. Sepoys are Indian soldiers fighting for their conquerors, the British. The British were seen as outsiders by the natives and often disliked as tensions ran high between the two groups. On January 24th, 1857, Sepoys heard a rumor that the cartridges that their ammunitions came in contained a waxy casing that was made of cow and pig fat. The tops of the cartridges had to be bitten off in order to get to the bullet. With these soldiers being Hindu and Muslim, the cow and pig are animals that cannot be consumed due to their religion. Therefore, they became enraged by the disrespect of the British towards their religion. Many Indians also felt the disrespect to their culture when the British tried to take a more westernized approach with the country, such as making English the primary language spoken. Hindus increasingly disliked the Widow Remarriage Act of 1856 implemented by the British. This act encouraged widowed women to remarry instead of depending on one lifelong husband like Hinduism encourages. The British also continued to offend the Indian race by seeing them as less than themselves and generally poor while putting Indians out of government and military positions. The rebellion started out small, with one sepoy firing the first shots towards India's independence. It was Mangal Pandey who shot his lieutenant in the back of the head. This started a ripple effect which led to Jamadar Ishwari Prasad, who was ordered to arrest Pandey but refused. Both were later sentenced to death for disobeying orders, but word spread about this act of defiance towards the British. Then, in Meerut, 85 soldiers out of 90 were ordered to do firing drills, but refused to use their cartridges. Majority of the defected soldiers were punished with jail time. A rebellion by Indian troops then started in the marketplace as a plan to free the imprisoned soldiers, which ended in the deaths of officers and civilians. In Delhi, 3 regiments of soldiers were ordered to attack the rebels, but they ended up joining in on the revolt themselves. King Bahadur Shah, who had little power left in India at the time, sided with the Indian rebels and was later named as the rebellion's ruler.
News about these acts of rebellion spread around India, leading to some British officers fleeing while others tried to take away firearms from their sepoys. Still, the rebellion was split because of distances over land, different ideas, and different religions. Majority of the Bengal army joined the rebellion, and with more reinforcements, the Indians were able to take more provinces. Hearing about the unrest, the British sent more troops by water to India. In India, the remaining British forces were split into 2 groups, sent either to Meerut and Somalia. This put the rebel soldiers back together in Delhi. Terms of peace were attempted by both sides on August 30th, but the British refused to the Indians' terms. In September, the British, with the help of gained reinforcements, were able to retake more cities, including Red Fort, and Bahad Shah Zafar fled. The British then went on to find Bahad Shah Zafar, arrest him, and execute him, his sons, and his grandson. Fighting continued on that year with brutal hits to both sides. The British suffered a great loss due to Nana Sahib and his troops who promised safe passage to many British officers and their families, but slaughtered the group while they tried to escape to Allahabad. All British men caught by Nana Sahib and his men were shot, while women and children were taken as prisoners to Bibigar, a labor camp with bad living conditions. When the British troops later advanced on Nana Sahib, he ordered for all the British prisoners to be killed. Killing all of these prisoners caused for the British to rally after feeling the full force of this attack. This newfound energy, fueled by the need for revenge, continued on in Britain's fight and was carried over into the province of Ohad. Inside this province, the city of Lucknow was overthrown by sepoys. There, British officers and soldiers were dwindling fast in numbers and wouldn't last much longer in battle. But soon the revived British troops came to their aid, led by Sir Campbell, and the troops were able to flee the city. Later in Jhansi, rebellion took hold there with the help of female leader Rani. British officers and their families took refuge in Jhansi fort when the revolt broke out, and similarly to the case of Nana Sahib, the British were offered a truce for them to evacuate, but instead were misled and killed. Punishment was dealt for sepoys during the rebellion and after terms of peace were made. The British Empire used cannons to kill soldiers in order to send a message to other sepoys who might rebel in the future. Sepoys were tied to the open end of a cannon, and the cannon was fired towards the air. The blown-apart body would then fall to the ground, and because it was separated, it prevented Hindu and Muslim funeral rituals from being performed. The Indian Rebellion of 1857 demonstrates what taking a stand in history means. The Indian Rebellion shows a dedicated fight by the people of India who decided to take a stand against a corrupt government and trade control. Indians wanted to create a better future for the next generation by breaking free of British rule that disrespected the way they lived their lives. The mutiny ultimately caused for many deaths on both British and Indian sides. The British especially had to kill many rebels in order to gain control of the country again. There was also a drop in laborers for the British because of the many deaths caused by the Indian Rebellion of 1857. A more long-term effect of the rebellion is that the East India Company was disbanded because the British now realized its unpopularity over its corruption. Instead, the British government took a greater and closer approach to government rule with India. Essentially, the Indian Rebellion left the country with death, disease, destruction, and death. This first fight for independence in India marks a moment of significance in history because of how it truly shows a fight for better treatment of a people against a dishonest company and government. The sepoys during this time were aggravated with the current rule, so they took a stand and fought against their oppressors. Although the movement was not completely successful and the death toll was high, it is still notable in history for demonstrating the importance of fighting for what you believe in.